So on July 8th, 2013, I met 15 men in medium security prison for the first time. I'd spent a long time preparing, and when things were finally ready, I looked through a database of everyone in the state that's incarcerated, and I chose 15 men. I remember looking through the faces and the names and thinking, although I haven't met them, I know that they are going to be drastically changed by this experience, and they're going to drastically change me. On that first day, halfway through the conversation, I was terrified that they would just walk out of the room and the whole thing would be over before it started, but they didn't. And now I live with many of them. So I'm going to tell the story of how this happened. For the last 10 years, I've worked at OpenDoors, which is an agency that provides services and advocacy to people that have criminal records. And we have done a lot of really great work. But I realized a couple of years ago I wanted to do something that would get to the root of this problem, the cycle that we saw over and over again of crime and incarceration. I kind of felt like our work was like pushing a boulder up a hill. We could work really hard, but if you didn't get it over the hump, it would just roll back down to where it started. So I wanted to do something where I could push long enough and hard enough that people wouldn't just end up back committing crimes and going to prison. I call this project 9 yards, as in going the whole 9 yards. And a lot of others agreed to it. The Department of Corrections, the Rhode Island Parole Board, the Governor's Workforce Board, Mayor Taveras, amongst others. And the truth was, I really didn't know what was going to happen. But I knew that we had to try something. I think everyone involved knew that we had to try something because the system right now is badly broken. And there's a lot of damage as a result. The victims of crimes, their families, the men and women who spend years in prison, their children, and our neighborhoods. In the neighborhood that I live in Providence, over 50% of the African American adult men are on probation or parole. But there was another aspect of incarceration that I've been thinking about for a while, something that I learned in part from people in prison, which is that prison presents an opportunity. And I say this with a lot of regret because I really wish prison didn't exist. In our perfect world, there would be no prison, but we have to work with what we have. And maybe prison contains the key to its own reform. So on that first day, here's just an image that we took of that first day inside of some of the participants. We offered a deal. If you work really hard on your education while you're incarcerated, then when you get out, you get a job, a place to stay, and assistance with your career. So the first thing we did was we talked about careers. And none of them said they wanted to deal drugs, rob people. They talked about their dreams. Ron wanted to be a computer programmer, Juan a landscaper. Enrique had a solid idea. He said he wanted to work at McDonald's while going to business school and work his way up the corporate ladder because McDonald's was one of the few Fortune 500 companies that would hire him with a record. Thought it was kind of clever. And Mike said he just wanted to get a job because that was as far as he'd figured it out. And they weren't lying. I mean, they wanted to do these things because they really didn't want to go back to prison. They hated prison. I'm sure some of you have seen the television show Orange is the New Black. It in no way, although it has some dark scenes, encapsulates the sadness and the unhappiness of prison because that would be a very long and boring show that no one would watch. And if you had asked them right before they went to prison about this idea of transforming their lives, they would have been much less motivated. When they were strung out on heroin or alcoholics or deep into drug dealing, because that wasn't what they were focused on at that point. But prison presents a powerful incentive, which is another reason this moment of release provides such a unique opportunity. And I think another reason they stayed in the room that day was because they had been through this before. Many had been re-incarcerated within 2 months last time, one within 2 weeks. And they knew, I tried to tell them that the math was predictable this time also. 75% on average would be estimated to be rearrested within 5 years. And this program, from the start, has been ambitious. We said we wanted to try to reduce reincarceration by 75%, because if you can do that, we all win really big. You have fewer robberies, fewer drug overdoses, more money, millions, potentially more money for schools. We all win so big that this investment starts to make a lot of sense. Because imagine if we had $10,000 and we had the option to give it to all of you or to help one convicted felon. You probably wouldn't vote to give it away. But if I said it would protect one of you from injury, from having your car stolen, and in a couple years you would get $20,000 back, then we might, as a group, change our minds. It's very hard to get society to decide to invest in social services, no matter what, whether it's children, whether it's the disabled. And convicted felons, it's very difficult. But with the amount of money we're spending, around $200 million in Rhode Island a year just on prisons, this reinvestment starts to make a lot of sense, and the practical decision becomes investment. The humanitarian choice becomes the logical choice. So this sounds great, hopefully, at this point, but I also don't want to sugarcoat it, because many of the people in prison are far from rehabilitation. If this were easy, someone would have done it a long time ago. The group that we were working with, on average, was serving 4 years. They'd been incarcerated 3 times previously, and they all had at least one violent felony. On paper, they looked dangerous, untrustworthy, people who had already squandered their second chances. When I started working with them, it was difficult. I remember the first assignment, the homework assignment that I gave, and actually they preferred the term cell assignment because it wasn't their home, was an essay response. And I was surprised at how many people returned the essay until I noticed that a whole bunch were written in the same handwriting. Oh, wow, I got a laugh on this speech. I didn't think that was possible. And they hadn't even bothered, they didn't even take this seriously enough to cheat in a way that wasn't obvious. And the author of these forged essays was Ed. And I want to show you some video that I took of Ed when I initially met him. We'll see what happens. I think it's going to play.
In order for people to be interested in keep being interested in this program, well, me personally, I need good time, man. Because if I'm not going to get no good time from this, I'm not in any other program by anger management, I could be out there running ball, lifting weights, playing cards, doing something else with my time. Look, the way I've learned it is the strong survive. So when it comes down to it, I'm gonna put my family on my back and walk all over these weak. You know what I'm saying? To get to where I need to get to. You can't run from your past, because your past will always catch up to you. No matter what it is, no matter how hard you try, your past will always catch up to you.
When I started working with Ed, it was extremely difficult just to get him to come to class. But prison gave time to me and Ed, gave time to build trust, gave time for Ed to rethink his entire life. When I started working with him, he tested at a 7th grade level. He had a lifetime of drug and alcohol addiction. The stories of his childhood are hard to believe. And he had multiple medical problems. All of these obstacles, he realized they were the reality that he was struggling with. And he was saying, what's the point in trying? But with the time in prison to rethink everything and eventually get to work, he impressed me. Many of the men in this program impressed me, but Ed was the biggest surprise. And I'm going to try to show the second video that I have.
18.5 gallons. So it'll be 5 over 4G equals 18.5 gallons. Then you would want to convert the 18.5 gallons into a mixed fraction, right?
Yeah.
I never thought I was just smart. You know what I'm saying? That's why I went to St. George. But if a kid that was doing what I'm doing, I would probably beat him up.
Yeah. Fair enough.
But now that I know what I gotta, like, I have a whole different outlook on life, and like I've actually got somebody here to tell me, look, you can actually do this, and this is actually possible. You know what I'm saying? It brings a whole new perspective on other things.
So now, Ed has a 3.0 GPA and 12 college credits. We retested again. He'd increased his grade level by 4 grade levels. And he has a solid plan for his future. He actually hasn't gotten out yet. He gets out soon. But many of the men that I work with have been released. They got out about 4 months ago, and they have come a long way. I live with them, many of them, like I said, as the housing manager of a transitional supportive housing program, and there's a room waiting for Ed. 7 of them who are enrolled in college now have finished 32 classes and have a B+ average as a whole. On a given week, most of them are up before 7 to go to work, talk about their classes during the week. I watch them play with their children in the park. We cook meals together. One guy in particular wakes up at 4:30 in the morning, takes the bus 90 minutes to work, hauls around broken televisions until 6, takes the bus back, and then 4 nights a week goes to either his college classes or the computer repair training program we run. He told me that if it weren't for this program, he would be selling drugs or dead. They have taken this program and they have run with it. And the struggle was initially that this wasn't supposed to work. People like Ed aren't supposed to be possible to help. But I've learned that the only reason that we don't think people like Ed can be helped is that no one has pushed hard enough. And I want to introduce you now to someone who has impressed me by taking advantage of every opportunity I could give him since I met him 15 months ago. This is Derek LeBlanc.
Hi, how's everyone doing tonight? My name is Derek LeBlanc, and I'm a 25 recovering drug addict. I've been sober for 3 years, 8 months, and 17 days. Even though I'm 25, I've lived the life of a 55-year-old. And I say this because things throughout my life have not been easy. A great deal of this has been self-sabotaging and self-inflicted. But I wouldn't change anything that I put myself through and have endured. It's molded me into the man that I am today. Throughout my earliest stages of drug use, I was young, arrogant, easily misled. I idolized the wrong choice of associates, people who I thought had my best interests, but in all actuality just used me. I was a wild card and didn't care about the consequences to my actions. This eventually led to my incarceration. Since the age of 14, I've spent 8 years in prison, in and out. And it got to the point where when I looked in the mirror, I didn't even recognize the person that was looking back at me in the reflection. It's taken me years to learn to accept who I am as a person, to love myself, and to identify where I've been going wrong in my life. It was through the 9 Yards program that I gained hope and responsibility. And it's not easy, I'm not gonna lie. There's days when I want to revert back to my old ways, but I don't. I persist and move forward. Today, I surround myself with positive, driven people, people who genuinely care about my well-being. But it's not all about them. They simply plug you into the right avenues and guide you into the right pathways. It has to come from within. Change has to come from within. I understand change isn't easy. It is discouraging. Since my incarceration, I've enrolled in college. I've completed a full year of college. I have a 3.7 GPA. Thank you. Thank you. I work for an HVAC company. I do controls. I have a registration, a registered truck, insurance, health insurance. It feels good. I pay utility bills. It really does. It feels good. I mean, up until this year, I'm going to be filing my first tax return in 25 years, my first tax return. This is crazy. Never in my life when I was using drugs did I think that I would be filing a tax return. Come on. So, this program changed my life and has molded me into the man that I am today. Today, I'm not the young kid who acts on impulse. I think 1, 2, 3 times before I do anything in my life. And for that, I want to thank all of you for listening. Thank you.